Well, good morning, everybody. This is Saturday. This is actually the makeup for Friday. We just lived through, or are living through, one of those periods in the year that's difficult with everybody being sick. Being sick isn't what's odd because children have that susceptibility as their immune system is still developing. But what was odd was that I got sick. I hardly ever get sick. Um, but it passed quickly, so it was good. And I'm recovering, and now Melody is down with it today. But it's all good. God gives us the strength to get through and get through it with joy. So on Friday we read through Job 1 to 6. Double check that, but anyway. And just as we start in on Job, I just want to. There's just a few things I want to point out. First of all, this is really early days. This is thought to be one of the first thing that was written. Uh, so God has not revealed much of Himself at this point. Um, the worship of Yahweh has started. We read that already in Genesis. But he is worshipped as the creator. His name isn't even known. He's just worshipped as creator, as God. Uh, and he's worshipped for his creation. He's worshipped for the beauty that people see around, worshipped for the attributes that are obvious in nature all around us. But on a personal level, he's not known. There's not a deep personal relationship like we have now. So their theology is limited. So as we read through Job, understand that the theology here is limited. Surface stuff, creator stuff is what's being presented here. Second, this is before the cross. So what they're living in is limited. They don't get to live what we're living. They don't get to experience what we experience. So we live under a new covenant. They lived even before the old covenant. They were pre-covenant people, worshiping a creator that they didn't know a lot about. The third thing is that not just because it's in the Bible does not mean that it is something that pleases God or is acceptable to God. We see that all the way through the Bible because what is presented is the stories of people. And the stories of people are filled with good and bad stuff. And just because the bad stuff is there doesn't mean that God accepts it. When we look at Abraham and the way he treated his wife, that is not an acceptable thing of God, but that's part of Abraham's story. For the sake of his own life, he sacrificed his wife. There's all kinds of things here. When you look at Isaac and Reuben in all these characters that weren't the best characters, Jacob, yeah, these weren't the best characters, but this is people's stories. He's a storyteller. He reveals his part in people's stories, and this is what we need to keep in mind as we read through this. Just because this person is saying this doesn't mean it's right. This is the reason why we read through the whole Bible. This is why we study the whole Bible, is that we would know Dad's heart, so that we know what is from his heart and what is part of a person. It's the same in our life, that we need to know the difference between our voice, the enemy's voice, and God's voice. Just because there's an idea there doesn't mean that idea belongs to us. It doesn't mean it's God's idea either. So we test the Spirit, because the way we can test the Spirit is because of our relationship with Father. We know His heart. We know His attributes. We know what fits Him and what doesn't fit Him. What belongs to the Word and what doesn't belong to the Word. So yeah. So this is what's important as we read through Job. And Just the one thing that jumped out at me as we read through this was that Job's automatic reaction when he lost everything, and those of you who have lost even a little thing, you know how devastating that can be. When he lost everything, and then when his health was affected, and just coming out of this thing, and some of you have experienced it as well, just coming out of this thing, we know that health issues really, we have to push even harder in to experience God. We have to push in harder to keep that connection fresh and real. So yeah, we know those things affect us, but Job's automatic reaction was to worship. He was a worshiper in everything. We see that. He offered sacrifices for his children. There was this constant atmosphere of worship. He definitely had a love for the Creator, and it was worship. So his automatic reaction was worship. But we saw that maybe he failed to press into that. But we see that depression starts taking in. He starts questioning things, and I'll just leave it at that. That it's we've got to. We may know how to respond, but we have to continue responding like that. We can't just respond once like that, but it just has to be a constant. Just the constant trust, the constant worship, the constant leaning on, the constant trust, the constant faith. That is how we respond to things, and Job should have kept that in mind. So you have a fantastic day today as we read through Job. I don't want anybody getting depressed. Worship God. Worship God. Stay there. And yeah, talk to you soon.